Hi everyone. Today I wanted to sit down and tell you more about the parts of an essay. The first part that's of major importance that we often forget about is the title. Usually I don't write a title of an essay until I've already written every other part. That's because as I write, I usually change my way of thinking a little bit. Maybe the focus of my essay is a little different than I thought in the beginning. So even though the title is something you see at the beginning of the essay, I personally usually write my title at the end. But even though you write it at the end, the person reading will see it at the very beginning. Every essay should have a title. Never turn in a final draft or a final essay with no title. You must have a title. This title should connect to your thesis statement and the main point of your essay. So whatever you're trying to say to your reader in general, whatever main point you're trying to make in general, that general idea or that main idea should be reflected in your title. Your title should also show some thought or creativity. So, even though your title wants to connect to your thesis, it shouldn't be the exact same words as your thesis. There should be some creativity, it should make your reader interested, and it should make your reader want to keep reading your essay. So a good example of a title would be the phrase, "Why I Lie." This would make me very interested. I would like to know why this person lies, why this person admits he or she lies, and what he or she thinks her purposes are. A not so great example of a title is Cause and Effect Draft 1. Even on a draft, it's good to make your own title, because even then your teacher can give you some help, can give you some feedback, and maybe help with your grammar, help with your phrasing to make your title even better. But if you never put a title until your final draft, there's no way for your teacher to help you and no way for your teacher to guide you. So even on a draft of an essay, I would like to see a good try at a thoughtful and creative title. Just like you read already, the general format of an essay is like this, no matter if you're writing for history or philosophy or English or business. This general format really never changes. The first part of your essay is always an introduction. The second part of your essay is always the body of the essay. Just like your physical body takes up most of who you are, it's the exact same in an essay. This section, this body section, should be the longest part of your essay by far. And the last part, which is very important also, is your conclusion. And we'll talk about how to write a very meaningful conclusion in this video as well. Now, depending on what kind of essay you're writing, how advanced your writing is, what purpose your writing is, you might have more than one introductory paragraph. You might have a lot of body paragraphs. In your body paragraphs, you might have counter arguments, you might have graphs, you might have charts, you might have separate sections with headings on it, but regardless of what is inside the body of the essay, the body is still the biggest part. And the last part at the very end is our conclusion. So let's talk about our introduction first. The first paragraph, or sometimes paragraphs of an essay, are called our introduction. The purpose of the introduction in general is to introduce the topic. Tell your reader what you're talking about, what the general idea of your essay is about. Is it about women in Nigeria? Is it about international students? Is it about the death penalty? Whatever topic you're talking about in your whole essay, you want to introduce that topic in your first paragraph. In your introduction, you should try to give your reader a hook to get their attention. We call this a hook because just like when you go fishing, you have a little piece of wire that's bent like a letter U or a letter J. So when fish bite it, they get stuck. The same way, we want to have a first line of our essay be so interesting, be so fascinating, that it hooks our reader, just like a fish gets hooked when somebody is fishing and they can't let go because they're so interested. So there are three main ways to provide a hook at the very beginning of your introduction. This is in the first sentence, or the first few sentences. You could ask a rhetorical question, something like, do you ever wonder why team sports are so popular? You don't want your reader to answer this question, but you want your reader to think about this question. Getting your reader to think is the purpose of a rhetorical question. Next, you can have a surprising or interesting statistic or fact. It should be surprising, it should be interesting. It should not be something everybody knows, but something that makes people interested to read more, interested to know more. So a fact like this would work fine. It is said that over 80% of today's children will live to 90 years old. Now, I made that fact up, but it would be a very interesting introduction to an essay. And of course, you always want your statistics to be real, even though mine just then was not. Any sort of statistic or fact you get should be from a credible source on the internet or in a book. Thirdly, a hook could be an anecdote that illustrates the main idea and thought of your essay. So, an anecdote is another way to say a story about something or someone that illustrates or gives a picture of a bigger point or a bigger purpose. The trick with doing an anecdote in our class is that so much of your writing is going to be examples anyway. Anecdotes work really well if you're talking about history or talking about business or talking about biology. Because in those types of essays, usually you don't use personal information or personal experiences. But because our essays are going to be a large part of personal experience, anecdotes really don't work that well for us. But it's important to know because you can use them in other types of essays for the future. So an introduction gives general and important background information. After you provide your hook to get your reader's attention, you want to give general and important background information. That could include words or important phrases that your reader may not know what the meaning is. It might give just a general idea of what the topic is about or what you're going to talk about in your essay, what the topic is, what it's used for, why it's important, anything in general that your reader should know before continuing your essay, you want to say here. I thought of one more way to use a hook that is very common. A quotation. A lot of times people use famous quotations, inspirational quotations, that help their reader think about their topic. So these four are quite popular. So again, after the hook, you give general and important background information. Then the last sentence of your introduction we call the thesis statement. You can also think of a thesis statement as the main idea, the controlling idea, the main argument of an essay. The whole introduction is building up to this thesis statement. So the reason why you have an anecdote or a hook, the reason why you have background information is so your reader will be prepared to read and understand your thesis statement, which is what I wrote down here. So as far as the introduction goes, those are the three parts: a hook, the background information, and the thesis statement. The next section of an essay we call the body paragraph. There are many different ways to talk about a body paragraph, to talk about how to write a body paragraph. And so in your future writing classes, your teacher might talk to you about body paragraphs very differently than I will in our class. And that's fine. That's because everybody has a different way of thinking about this portion of an essay and illustrating that to another person. For me, I like this idea, and I call it PIE. PIE stands for point, information, and explanation. The point corresponds to the topic sentence that you read about. The information corresponds to the examples, the reasons, the facts. I think they call them supporting sentences in your book. And the last section of a PIE paragraph is called the explanation, which explains this information and connects it to the point.